Hi and welcome to the Felt Hub. Today's tutorial is this fully festive pig Twinkle Chops, and this is made using a wool dryer ball, but you can felt your own ball. I'll pop a link below for you. I love questions, so please feel free to leave a comment, ask me anything you like. And if you're enjoying my content, then it would be really helpful if you could show your support with a like and a subscribe and a share. Let's get felting. So here I have my dryer ball. I've used a big one here, but it's about 7 centimeters, but you can use a smaller one as well. And I've got some lovely pink carded wool top, which I'm just going to wrap around and cover the entire ball. I'm going to use, my top tip is a fine needle. Because the ball is quite hard, it's more difficult to get it to stick with a coarser needle. So I opted for a 40 triangular needle, and it worked perfectly. I tried the 38, and although it worked fine, it just took a little bit more working in, so I opted for the 40 triangle. So you're just covering up, you're just working around that felt dryer ball or the one that you've made, and you just want to make sure that that's nicely and firmly tacked onto the dryer ball. Don't worry too much at the start, just get it tacked on, and then you can go over it later on. If there's any white patches or bits that you've missed, then you can just add some more wool. And I'm also trying out a needle felting pen here. This has got 40 fine needles in as well, and that worked pretty well. And so I've just got a patch there, got a ball patch, so I'm going to cover that with a little bit of extra pink carded wool. They're also called carded slivers, I believe. But I just call them carded long lengths. And then once that's done, set that aside, and we're going to start with the nose. Now, all we are aiming for is a very sort of small barrel shape. And I'm using the BBQ Skewer for this, which is absolutely perfect for getting a really nice, firm shape that is really symmetrical. And as you can see, I've just broken off that wool in error, but it doesn't matter. It's carded wool, so you'll be able to continue with that. Once you need to add more, you can just stick that around what you've felted and build it up from there. So I've got a flat nose at the front, and then the back I'm leaving quite loose because that is actually going to stick to the bauble that we've just created. So you want that nice and loose so that it sticks to it easily. And I'm just building it up, and you can see this barrel shape coming on, and I'm just keep flattening where the end of the nose is. You want to make sure that's nice and flat, and then when you take it off, you can still work it as well. It's just getting it done on the BBQ Skewer just makes it so much easier. And I'm using the 38 star for this because it's a bit more robust, so if it catches that wood, it's not going to break. And once you're happy with the size and shape, then you can just pull that off the BBQ Skewer, and then at the end where there's the little hole where it's been sat through the BBQ Skewer, you can just felt that with your needle. That's quite easy. Just pull the wool over or just felt straight through it. And then I'm going to put this to one side, and we're going to start working on the ears. Ears are quite simple to make. It's 2 small pieces of wool. I'm going to add some pink for detail here, but it's up to you, entirely up to you what you do. And we're going to create 2 triangular shapes. So we're going to end up with sort of petal-like shapes when we're finished. I've just blended that wool together there. So I'm drawing on a sort of rounded triangle. So it's just a soft triangle shape, and I'm leaving it loose at the base. I'm not creating a line, so it's just 2 lines in a triangular shape, and then I'm pulling that wool over. And the reason we do that is because it gives it a really neat finish, so we end up with no raw wool at the edges. So it's really good to create that shape beforehand and pull the wool over. And then you just need to do that with the second ear, and then start shaping it. But careful of those fingers. I would use finger guards for this, especially if you're not used to needle felting. And I'm just working around the shape. I really want to get this nice and firm and really flat and secure. And then I like to add a little bit of shape around the ears. And if you're a bit more experienced, you'll do this anyway. It'll just be a natural thing that you do. But remember to keep that wool loose at the base because that's going to attach to the back of the pig's head. And once you've made one ear, you can use the other ear as your size guide and your template to make sure that they're both pretty much the same. Then find the spot on your face where you want the ears to be and just gently place them down just so you get the positions right, and then just very gently tack them on until you're happy with the positioning, and then you can start to work that wool in a lot more, and you can see it just disappears into that felt ball that we have created there. Do the same for the other ear, attach that as well, and not too firmly to start with, because you may want to reposition them and reshape them and give them that nice sort of cup shape that you see with the pig's ears as they sort of turn in. And just keep felting until they're nice and secure and you're happy with the shape and the size. And it's really easy to manipulate the wool here so that you can get those ears just as you like them. Your fingers are great tools as well to help with the shape. If one's a little bit smaller than the other, you can actually pull that wool slightly and widen it or lengthen it. And poking down through the wool, through the back of the ears as well. If one's a bit longer, then that will shorten it. So use your hand and use that needle to get that position. And then the nose that we created earlier, we're now just going to attach that to the middle of the face using that loose wool that we kept so that it felt really nicely with a few visible marks. And we're going to build this up, and it looks really odd at the moment because it looks really long, but we are going to squish that nose, and we do that by pushing that needle right through the center of the nose, holding it down with our fingers. Again, use guards if you need to, and then just pushing all of that loose wool into the felt ball until it holds. And you need to work on this for a little while, just until you're happy with the position and making sure that it's really nice and firm. And what this also does is it creates those natural creases, that you see in the pig's nose. And we're going to accentuate those a little bit more later on. But just work your way around, make sure it's really firmly on. And then I wasn't happy with the lines that I could see around the nose. So I've added some fresh wool. You may not need to do this, but what it also does is it makes the nose wider at the base. So it then really does become part of the facial features and you can't see any joints at all. And I'm really happy with that. Now to the second part of the mouth. And if you don't want to do this, if you're not confident enough, then you don't have to. But if you are a confident felter, then this is a really, really nice touch to add. And I'm just, again, creating a sort of circle with a loose wool end to it. A really small amount of wool. You don't want too much. And again, you're just folding in those edges so that you've got that nice soft finish. You don't want any raw wool sticking out. And this is where the felting pen comes in really handy, because it makes it much quicker to felt, to flat felt, to firm up, and it just makes the process much easier. A single needle is absolutely fine, but if you're doing a lot of needle felting, then I'd definitely get the felting pen, and there'll be links in the description to my favourite tools as well. And this just needs to be made smaller, so I'm still pulling in those sides, I'm shaping it, making sure that it's nice and firm, really working that wool. Still too long though. You don't want it sticking in front of the snout. You want that slightly back from the snout, just very slightly, so it doesn't want to protrude. So again, I'm shortening it, keep working it, and just take your time with this. And if the first one doesn't work out, then just do another one, because you're only using a tiny amount of wool, so it really doesn't matter. Have you noticed how I'm coordinated? I'm so coordinated with this. I didn't mean to. It was pure accident. And again, almost there, but not quite. You can see it's just hanging in front of that snout slightly still. But when I'm adding this on, I'm going to shorten it. And again, like we did the ears, we are just attaching underneath the mouth, underneath the snout, and I'm shortening it by pushing down, straight down through those fibres, and those fibres will be drawn into that felt ball and shorten it. Looks a bit wonky at the moment, but as I go along, I'll adjust it, because I'll keep moving it around whilst I'm adding details anyway. But just keep working that until you're happy, but make sure it's nicely and firmly positioned. And if you need to add a little bit of wool around to cover any needle marks or lines, then that's fine. Mine's okay. I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And then I'm just I want it to attach to the snout a little bit more because there's a little bit much separation for me. So just push the felting needle through the base of the mouth and into the snout. And then I'm just adding this little bit round here to secure it, just to cover up any lines that I may have just created. But make sure you work that nicely in. I would use your 40 fine needle for this, so that you don't leave many needle marks. Now, realistic eyes on a pig are really easy. 2 tiny pieces, and I mean tiny pieces of black or very dark wool, and find your position. Make sure you're happy with it. You don't have to do any felting until it's on the face. You pop those bits of wool in, and then you just pull that wool into the center, so you're making a nice circular shape. And you'll see when it feels right and looks right, you'll be happy with the size. But it doesn't want to be too big, but again, it doesn't want to get lost, because we are going to create the brows around it. And remember, eyes are round. We create that shape with the wool that we add for the eyebrows. We create that oval shape when we add this, not when we create the eyes. So don't try and make the eyes an oval shape. They are round. And then I've felted into my fingers. I've just really sort of felted some tiny seed shapes of the pink wool and just added those around the eyes. So what that's done is it's given it depth, it's given it height, it's given it character, and it's given it realism. And it's so simple to do, and you just repeat that until you're happy with it. I've blended a bit of white in as well, as you can see, because it's got some contrast there, so it really sort of stands out. And you repeat for the other eye. You may need to go back to it, but just keep working it until you're happy with it. If it's not right, then pull it off and start again. It doesn't matter. I'm just adding a little bit more white here for highlight. Now, eyes will always show a little reflection or light. So get the tiniest piece of white wool and poke that into the eye. And make sure you've done it on the same position on both eyes, otherwise it'll look cross-eyed. And just push it in until there's just a little speck. And then now we're going to go around that nose again, and we're going to start to create some more defined lines. So squish it in, felt it, and then where those lines are visible, take some slightly darker contrasting wool, very thin wisps, and felt that into those lines. And you will see now how that detail is really starting to show through. And then just trim the ends, keep working that, keep squishing it, keep felting it, keep pushing it in. And soon enough, you'll have these really fabulous details that you see on most pigs. Most importantly, don't rush this part. Take your time. Make sure you are happy with it, and don't leave it until you are happy with it. And then once you've done that, you can just pop around the nose and the mouth and make sure everything's nicely secure before we create the little snout. And I've got some really light grey wool here. You could use white, or you could use something darker, but I didn't want it to stand out too much because it's a Christmas decoration. I wanted it to be quite light. So I've used a really sort of light white and grey mix, and this works just fine for me. But you can use whatever you want, whatever works. I still want to see those dark areas, but I don't want them to be the thing that sticks out the most on the face. I want them to be quite sort of delicate features. And once they are in position, then poke them through with focus and intent, straight through, just tiny little pokes, and only a few, until they're nicely secured. I had to take off the first one because I put it in the middle, and so he had a wonky nose. So you can just pull it out. If it's not in the right position, you can pull it out. And then go around, have a look, make sure you're happy with the positioning of everything. Final touches before we go to work on the wings, which are optional, by the way. You may not want to add the wings, but I've added them to mine because I just think they make it look quite sort of fantastical. And I'm just going round and just generally making sure that it's really nice and tidy. And now, if you don't want to make the wings, it's really good to have a practice with these because these work fantastically for petals as well, for flowers or any bird's wings. So it's a really good technique to learn. But if you don't want to add the wings, then that's absolutely fine. Just keep it nice and simple. The wings are simple to make, but you must take your time with them to get the best finish. And I have folded over a piece of white carded wool, quite thin because you're going to be double up the thickness once you folded it over. And the reason again we folded it over is so we've got those nice soft edges, no raw wool. And then you are going to work until it's nice and firm. Don't worry too much about the shape and size yet. Just keep working it until it's firm. Now, there's quite a few of these to make, 8 in total, so 4 for each side. So I am going back to my felting pen because it really speeds up the process. And like I said, this is a really useful tool if you are doing a lot of felting. It's great for starting your projects, and it's also excellent for anything that's flat felted. Now that the wool's starting to firm up, I'm actually starting to pull in those edges to create more of that sort of petal wing shape. We want nice flat edges, and I'm going to add some lovely pink silk. And if you can see, this wool I have has actually got some Angelina sparkles in it, which I really loved. I've had it a while and I've been just waiting for an opportunity to use it. So this seemed the perfect time. So as I said, the felting pen, really good tool, really speeds up the process. If you haven't got one, then you can just hold 2 or 3 needles in your hand and do the same thing. And then I'm bringing on the big guns, which is the punch needle tool. And this one, you can have anything up to 7 needles in it. I think the clover one, which is the pink tool, has 5. I find either the clover one or this cheaper, much cheaper one work exactly the same because you can just change the needles. They are interchangeable and you can have as few or as many needles as you wish. And it works really well on the rice hessian mats as well. So if you're using a rice hessian mat, you can actually use more needles in that punch tool. The shape as I'm working it, don't worry too much about size because you're going to use, once you've made one, you'll use that as your template to make sure all the others are the same size because they are all the same shape and size or similar. They're just set at slightly different heights. The ends need to remain wispy, but only the ends because we are going to felt this nice and firmly. We don't want any stragglers. So you're just leaving a little bit at that sort of tail end that's nice and loose so we can attach them to the back of the pig. Now that I'm almost happy with the shape of that wool, before I do it any more firmly, I just want to add some colour and detail in the form of some blended carded wool and some silk fibres. And what happens is the carded wool helps the silk fibres to adhere to the end of the wing. Silk fibres obviously completely different to wool, and to get them to attach securely, if you can, just blend them with a little bit of wool. It does help. They will hold on their own, but I've just used a little bit of wool just for extra detail as well. And I've not gone overboard, you know, it's just touches of colour. And then you can use your fine 40 needle to add those so you don't have any needle marks. And it's still a bit thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one, the first one that I made, as the template for the rest. So lay it on the top, and then you can just felt around the bottom petal shape to make sure that it's as similar as possible to the one that you're using as the guide. And if you do that for all of them, they'll all be pretty similar shapes, but don't get too hung up over that. It really doesn't matter if they're not all perfectly shaped and perfectly the same size. And if you do have too much wool at the ends as well, when you come to putting it together, you can just cut the end off like I've done on this one. There was loads of wool, so it was just much easier to cut off the end. So don't be frightened of being quite brutal with your wool sometimes. I know, you know, we always say cutting the wool is a no-no, but you can add fresh wool with this because it's going to be part of a bigger piece. So don't worry, just get the scissors out and take a deep breath and cut. And now it's just a case of rinse and repeat until you have the correct number of wings. You might want to just go for 2 big wings or 3, but I've gone for 4 on each because I just really liked the design of them. I tried a few well, this is my 3rd attempt, and this was what I was happy with and what I felt gave the most impact. So hence why I've gone with these shapes and this number. But you go with whatever you feel is okay with you. And if you want to keep it really simple, you can create just 1 wing for each side. Very, very simple. You know, if you're short on time, then definitely do that, and you still get a brilliant result. But I thought I'd really sort of go to town on these. And then I'm just working along the edges now. This is our final shaping process because we've got it really firm enough so that it will hold that shape without any distortion. I'm working around with that needle. Be really careful with your fingers. And I am just tidying up those edges. And I really wanted to take my time with this process to show you how it is done from start to finish. I felt it was quite important with these wings because it is time. It's just time. They're not particularly hard. And then this great little tool is just a folded piece of cardboard. And if you really want to firm up those edges, then you've got to be careful of your fingers, and this will protect you. You squeeze that cardboard and then you felt along those edges and it firms it up even more. It's such a great sort of quick handmade tool from a piece of cardboard. You can get proper leather ones, but you don't need that. And then you just move that around inside that cardboard until you are happy with the finish and the shape. And again, it really protects your fingers, and you can squeeze that wool together so that it gets nice and firm and flattens out. So hard part over. Now you just need to felt them together. You can pop a little bit of fresh wool in between the wings as well if that helps them to stick, but just make sure that both sets of wings are at the same or similar angles, and then you are ready to attach the pieces to the back of the pig's head. I'm going to attach mine together as one piece. But before I do that, yes, there is such a thing as overfelting, and my wool has got a little bit too firm here. So I've popped some fresh wool underneath those wings to make sure that it attaches nice and securely. And if you overfelt, what happens is you break down the fibres and it becomes really, really hard and difficult to felt into whatever it is you're attaching it to. So that's why you need the fresh wool, and I just overdone it a little bit here. Also, if you keep felting it, it can actually go soft again because you're actually then starting to break all the fibres down. So that's when you've lost it then, and you'd have to start again. Now to all the really, really fun bits. I love this. Instead of using pink wool, I love using blusher because it's so easy to put on and it just gives the best effect. It's so smooth and it's perfect for this project. So I am just popping some inside the ears of the pig, and of course you can use wool to do this or just leave them as they are, but I really like the effect of this blusher. It's so easy to apply and it stays on. If the question was going to be, does it not rub off? No, it doesn't. I mean, it would if you handled it too much, but the areas that it's in, it's absolutely fine. And then I want to have some rosy cheeks on mine, on Twinkle Chops, hence the name. Twinkles will be coming in a moment. And again, I'm just using the same blusher and just a small paintbrush, artist brush, but you can use a makeup brush, does exactly the same thing. And just try and get them central and the same on both sides. I find it's easier if you turn it upside down to complete the other side. It just gives you a better angle. If you notice as well, there's more accentuation around the mouth, and I just added a tiny, tiny bit of darker pink wool there, and it just really brought that mouth out and created not quite a smile, but it just really cheered Twinkle Chops up, and I was really pleased with that effect. So you could try to do that if you wanted. And then around, if you've caused any wispiness with your blusher brush, just trim very carefully close to the cheek and get rid of those. And then we are going to add our final sparkles. Now, all of this, of course, is optional, but it's Christmas, so, what's Christmas without glitter? Now, I have used, I think it's the Ranger range, and they're called Stickles. I'll try and put a link down below. I should be able to put a link down below if they're still selling them. And I've used them for years. I used to use them on cards. And it's like a clear glue, and it's got sparkles set inside the glue. And then you just rub them on for extra accents, and you don't need much, and then when that glue dries you don't see it at all, and it just adds an extra little bit of Christmas sparkle to this already gorgeous project. And I'm just putting a little bit inside the ears and on both cheeks, and then I'm just going to let that dry, and then it will sparkle even more once that's actually set, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better. It doesn't show up so brilliantly on the camera, but you can see it, and it's even better in person. And then once that's dry, which doesn't take long at all, I am just attaching a little bit of thread. Well, it's embroidery thread actually, so it's a decent thickness to hang it on the tree once the tree goes up. You don't have to do this, but I think it just looks gorgeous hung on the tree, and I can't wait to get my Christmas tree up and display it along with the sheep baubles, which I will also pop links down below for you. They're a super fast project, an hour from start to finish. Again, use a wool dryer ball or a felt ball that you've already made. And the wings, well, yeah, they're over the top, but it's Christmas. And if you can't be over the top at Christmas, then when can you be? And this is just a great result. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more tutorials. They'll be coming up right at the end.